everyone, and welcome back to Bears on Tap. I'm your host, Brandon Suarez. You can follow me on Twitter at Bdon300, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Quintin, at ButtKissStats. We're going to recap yet another preseason victory. The Bears won 21-20 against the Cleveland Browns. A lot to be excited for, and honestly, it was a weird game in the second half, but by the end of the first half, all of the first stringers were out, so you know preseason gets weird after that point. But Quintin, check in with you, and then we'll get started for today's show. Quinn, how are you, my guy?
Doing good, man. So you see this fish right here? That's what they got in Lake Erie out there in Cleveland. So I think the picture paints 1,000 words.
100%. No, and it got kind of ugly at the end. Like, you really thought the Browns were really about to come back. And in the preseason, for those of you that don't know, there is no overtime, and this isn't soccer or football, as they would call it. We're not playing for ties. Even in the preseason, you've seen, as someone who's watched a lot of the preseason games, coach is still going for the win. You saw it on Sunday with the Jets-Giants game. You saw it in our game where the Browns tried to get a 2-point conversion at the end, and Mr. Greg Stroman made the stop again. And he had a phenomenal game on Sunday or on Saturday night. I see my brain is just, conditioned to say Sunday, and we're back at that time of the year. College started back up this weekend, so hit the water. A little tickle in my throat, but I saw a lot that I liked on Saturday, and we can start on the defensive side of the ball. So what was the grading? Was it PFF that you were telling me for the defensive side where you said DeMarcus Gates and Devontae Harris were the two highest graded Bears?
Harris was the top graded player. Gates was the second best graded player. And then Sam Kamara was third. All guys that we've, noticed throughout the preseason here showed out in this final game to try to push for that those roster spots.
Yeah, honestly, like, DeMarcus Gates is a guy that we've talked a lot about throughout this preseason. His value on special teams is immense, and we saw what he could do on the defensive side of the ball. What I really liked, though, was Devontae Harris, man. I don't know what it was, but to have 6 solo tackles at the cornerback position in the NFL where corners traditionally just aren't tackling like that anymore just blows my mind. And just knowing football, watching the way he was breaking on receivers and getting into the gaps on the run fits, like, he looked phenomenal. And I know he's always kind of been a fringe roster guy, but we're a fringe roster team right now. We don't have the luxury of having stars at every position. And I think with guys like Sam Kamara, guys like DeMarcus Gates, and guys like Devontae Harris, they should have a spot on this team. But there is a lot of people that will be getting called into the Flus's office and unfortunately not making this team. So it's the unfortunate nature of this business, but until the NFL gives us some sort of minor league system where we can keep an eye on these guys and maybe keep them in a system, that's just how the cookie crumbles for the NFL.
Yeah, I'd love to see them get some type of development league where you can develop a guy for what you're running, but that's just not – it doesn't seem like it's happening anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I've liked the spring leagues, and you see that there's been success stories from, the USFL this past spring with players performing at a high level in the preseason, and we would hope some of those guys, Gates being one of them, making rosters. But to start off right now, the Bears have about 10 guys that they've cut. So they cut tackle Julian Davenport, cut wide receiver Daz Newsome, and that honestly – you could just scratch everything that I said on last week's show because he didn't even get the chance to play against Cleveland. Like, he was out of the building. Key card didn't work before that. So feel bad for Daz in that sense, but we all kind of felt that it was coming. John or Gene DeLance, I definitely messed it up. It's probably Gene because that's how it's spelled, and I'm just an idiot. But offensive tackle, not going to be with the team this year. Jake Vargas at fullback. We saw some good things from Kari on Saturday. I will have to research how to say his name and get used to it because it's been a while since we've had a fullback, but I appreciate his presence.
Kahari Blasingame?
Yeah, Kahari Blasingame. I appreciate the way that man plays football, and it just feels good to have a fullback back in the offense considering how much we're probably going to run the football this year,
Yeah, I mean, hey, go look at his numbers from Tennessee, their rushing numbers when he played. Derrick Henry was a better running back when Blasingame was there. Like it just his numbers were better when Blasingame was lead blocking for him than when he was running, a single back formation. So I think that speaks a lot in itself.
It's honestly a fire name when you really break it down, like Kahari Blasingame. Like now that I am just, as the illiterate member of this podcast, getting that all under wraps, like that is actually fire name alert. But
yeah.
Moving on, a guy that we kind of liked his nastiness, and he's a local guy, went to Western Illinois. LaCale London was cut defensive lineman. I would hope maybe they could find a spot for him on the practice squad. I don't know how that will all work out because I don't know. He might be 25, 26, but I know they've changed the structure of how practice squads are made up. At the corner, go ahead.
He's 25 years old now, and it seemed like he put on some weight this year, like to try to get more power behind him. I don't know. I'd still be interested to see him on the practice squad just because I felt like even though it was against backups, he kept flashing against those backups. And maybe it was just an illusion because he was wearing number 96 and I love Akeem Hicks, but I don't know.
As also the non-tech guy, let me get the live chat loaded up. So Mr. I Am Skokes is in the building. Lop is with us. He said they're down to 76 from the original 90. I believe he wrote an article for us for On Tap Sports Night earlier regarding it, and then he took a low blow. I'm a huge fullback guy. Everybody knows it. I mean, when you grow up watching guys like Mike Allstott and Jim Kleinsaucer, like you have a different appreciation for the position.
Don't disrespect Jason McKee like that. You got
his name in there. Yes, Jason McKee. Used to keep him around on my Madden franchises for years on end, just strictly for the vibes and having a fullback. And then, too, like, if you look at the last fullback we had, Michael Burton, he is still contributing at a high level in this league right now. Like, he has been playing with the Saints. I think he's with the Chiefs now. Yeah. So, yeah, because I remember it was the Michael Burton and Matt Nagy revenge game. It was just a swan song. But moving down the list, so there's more people that have been cut. So, cornerback Bo Pete Keys, he looked all right in the preseason, but obviously not good enough to make this team. And that's going to be still a very tight position group to figure out who's going to get majority of the snaps. Vildor had some moments on Saturday where he looked good, and he had some moments on Saturday where it's like, why? Like, can you name your favorite part of the Kindle Vildor experiment? Because I truly can't.
I mean, honestly, in his own scheme, I'm fine with Vildor's depth. The guy can play special teams. Guy can play zone coverage fine. Don't ask him to play press man, and he'll survive. A guy that I've been reading for years, Jonathan Wood over at the Bears blog, wrote an article about this a few months back about how when you break down Vildor's stats in zone coverage versus man coverage, it's very clear that he's about an average zone defender, but he is not a guy you want playing man coverage or press man, which is kind of surprising because that was one of his strengths coming out of college. But if it's what it is at this point, in his own heavy scheme, I'm okay with him being around.
But as someone who played defense, the other cornerbacks in the room don't respect you if you can't man up. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah. Like, do we want that? No. We want a guy that can man up when he has to as well. But yes, in his own scheme, he's better. But at the end of the day, like you gotta be able to seatbelt check someone. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, but I don't know. I think the secondary and honestly the defense as a whole, like I don't remember who it was, but I saw like an interesting quote about the depth of the defense and just kind of like how the defense feels about themselves. Like I feel like they have a confidence and a swagger to them, even though it's only preseason, even though they only played in training camp. It's not like we have seen a bad defensive year over the last like 5 years. Like we've seen some average ones at best because the offense doesn't do us any favors. But at the end of the day, like we still have quality players. And then too, you had the two new guys in the secondary with Brisker and with Kyler Gordon, both rookies. It's like you would really hope you can get good contributions from this year. And if you do, the sky is the limit for that defense.
Yeah, my biggest worry with the defense is really just the Hogs up front. Can they keep the backers clean in the run game? because that's a major point of this defense is keeping your backers clean to clean everything up. And without Hicks, without Goldman, I mean, obviously they spent a lot last year without Hicks, and Goldman wasn't the same player, but it's just a lot of size you're losing and replacing. I like Angelo Blackson. I like Tonga, but sometimes on the film I worry about his length and his ability to stay clean and really just take on the double team without getting pushed back into the backers. So that's one spot I'm still a little worried about. If that interior defensive line overperforms, I think this defense can be pretty good. But I need to see that before I'm willing to say it, you know?
Yeah, no, 100% too. With the Bears, I mean, what can we really say about the offense helping the defense out? So in this year, I think above all else, from the offense, in order for this team to be the most successful that they can be, no bad plays on your own inside of your 20, like giving up the ball in plus territory, like try and eliminate all that shit. I honestly think Trenton Gill is a decent punter. I mean, as a punter, all you have to do is kick the ball and have time to do so. So it's like, as long as the offense doesn't turn the ball over, like I don't think we're going to be in a lot of shootouts this year. You know what I'm saying? Like I think a lot of our games will finish under 50 points, like in the 40s, maybe even the 30s, like low scoring, real white knuckler games.
If this unknown kid who came out of nowhere named Justin Fields keeps throwing 3 touchdowns a half, I don't know about all
that. Yeah, see, I mean, that too, but at the same time, you got to realize, like, people are probably going into playing the Bears like, oh, we've lost our last 3. We're about to just smoke this team. And it's like, no, we're not. Like, we shouldn't be that pushover team on anyone's schedule. And then, too, outside of like the Bills and the Packers and, those type of teams on our schedule, like I have fully talked myself into winning the game against the 49ers. Trey Lance has not looked great. I should have put my name instead of Justin Fields is better than Jordan Love. I should have put he's better than Trey Lance because it is time to be on to the 49ers. But I still think at the same time, like we should still be excited about a 3-touchdown, perfect quarterback rating game. Got everybody involved. 2 touchdowns to tight ends. My guy Cole Kmet getting one of those. So, it was a wheel route too. So it's like a long developing route. Like Cole Kmet haters were probably furious.
Man, so real quick, while we're on the quarterback drafted ahead of Justin Fields talk, I'm just going to read this Darnell Mooney quote real quick. I know he's a dog. He's going to shine. He's going to prove everything that everybody doubted him on, especially in week 1. That team passed on him. They're going to have to pay a little bit for that.
And
that got me fired up when I read it.
And if you remember, he played against them last year, and if it wasn't for us just not being a second half team, especially when we have a lead, like I'll say we didn't lose that game. The clock ran too long. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we played a good game for the team that we had last year against them.
I mean, he was lighting it up at the end of that game. He one of his interceptions came in the last 2 minutes of that game, down by like I want to say it was 9 or something. So it was pretty much garbage time. But he hung in and kept the Bears within a score that whole fourth quarter up until that point, and just throws a bomb to Darnell Mooney in double coverage, which, usually you frown upon, but he hit Darnell Mooney's hands. Like, it was a tough catch, but he put the ball exactly where it needed to be. And he, granted, you'd like to see him not go into double coverage, but you're down by 9 with 2 minutes left. Take your shots.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was on fire that game. And I think that had something to do with it. The Niners passed on him.
So there's one thing that I've kind of noticed throughout like all the different narratives, and we'll get to Scott from Iowa here in the comments as well. But and I just used the word that I'm about to just abolish from this podcast. The way that the social media and the national media and even Chicago media describes the Bears are always in but if statements, right? if the offensive line doesn't block, Justin Fields isn't going to. Well, no fucking shit. Like, that's how the NFL works, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm tired of seeing the same regurgitated narratives. One thing that we do know, and I know you'll appreciate this statement, Justin Fields has that dog in him. And Justin Fields, at no point in his career, has ever been a loser. Never.
Yeah.
That was probably his first season in his entire career where he not only didn't perform to where he thought he was going to perform to, and his team did not perform to where they were going to perform to. So, I mean, I know we're gamblers, right? Like, we like to bet on things. I'm willing to bet that Justin Fields alone wins this team 5 games, just off his play alone. I don't think there's a war stat in football, but if there's one thing that I can definitively say going into this season is that Justin Fields will not be the issue. I know I'm wearing this jersey. I know I sound like Homer Simpson right now. That's fine. But I know football. Like, clip me, Packer fans will have a field day with this, no pun intended. But I'm playing the averages on this, and I just really think that Fields is poised to have a breakout year. It may not be 4K, but give us 3,500 on the ground, and the team will be a lot better than they were last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, think back to 4 weeks ago, my key point of the show is Justin Fields will prevail, and I still full-heartedly believe it. I mean, kid's got something. He's just got that it, and that's not something we've ever really seen here. And so I don't know, maybe I can't recognize it, but I think I can, and I think he does.
Yeah, no, he definitely has that it factor, and at the quarterback position, you want that. But what Scott said is he said the best thing after the Justin Fields 3 touchdowns was seeing the keywords being used to describe the team: disciplined, effort, and structured. So it's like, even in the moments that he is just balling, like perfect QBR, 2 incompletions all game, 3 touchdowns, hitting like, I don't know how many different receivers he hit, but
it was 10. Yeah,
10 different receivers. You can't throw a dog a bone and pat a guy on the back for having a performance that was above average for what everyone is saying he's going to do. Like, as we talked about at I want to say the beginning of the month, we talked about odds and the Bears win total and all that type of stuff, right? When we first talked about it, it was even on both sides. It is minus 190 for the Bears to not win 7 games. And it's like being promoted on books as boosted and shit. And it's just like, after watching the Bears in the preseason, after seeing what we saw in camp and just the kind of guys and the culture change, like, the Bears might be labeled as a frisky team this year. Like, you know how there's always that team where it's like, we should probably beat them. We're probably a 7-point favorite. I think the Bears could be a live dog in a lot of games.
You remember John Fox's first year in Chicago?
Yes.
That's what I'm expecting, pretty much. A team that's always in it to the end.
Give me 9-8. Give me 9-8 in that 7 spot, and I'll run through a brick wall for Justin Fields.
Well, so, I mean, I think that team only won 5 or 6 games, but they were in every game to the end.
Yeah.
Is really what I'm saying. I mean, I could see this team winning 7 games, maybe 8, but, like, they're going to be in it down to the end of every game. And maybe that a little luck can push that up. A little bad luck can push it down too. Like, that team only won 5 games, but they were in every game. That was a little bit of bad luck, but it can go either way as far as I'm concerned. It's worth a coin flip,
A Lop in the comments says, if you split with your division rivals, that's 3 more 7 wins isn't outlandish. And I think too, that is, we may not make the playoffs. Definitely not going to make the Super Bowl, but one spot that us as Bears fans can look at this team and say, hey, they are better than they were last year, regardless of record or stats or whatever, is how we react in those 1-possession games. Because through the Mitch era, through the Nagy era, through the last 5 years of our lives as Bears fans, those 1-possession games turned to 21-point blowouts in the snap of a finger. And we've seen it all too often. We've seen them pull out games like on Thanksgiving where it's like you're puckered for 3.5 hours where you're just like, yeah, we want to see them win, but probably going to lose. this team with Justin Fields at quarterback, the ascending of Darnell Mooney to truly be a number one in this league. If you think that Darnell Mooney's not reading all the bullshit about him not being a true number one in this league, you got it twisted. He's definitely going to get another 1,000-yard, season as long as he stays healthy. And then, too, it's like Cole Kmet is another guy that I've started to see like on like the fantasy sleeper boards. I've kind of got the itch to maybe take a chance on him in my fantasy team because I honestly think Cole Kmet is going to be a huge, huge guy in that offense for Justin Fields.
Cole Kmet's average draft position is somewhere around 160 or 170. That's easily worth a flyer for a backup tight end on my roster.
Exactly. Scott said they win 3 more games because Nagy isn't the coach anymore. Eberflus actually makes mid-game adjustments. I honestly just like the way Eberflus does business, man. Like I know we haven't seen it in a live game. I know, we're going straight into the war zone against a team that was in the NFC Championship last year and a team that, for all the teams in the NFL, they probably know their identity more than all of the other 32 teams. They know what they want to do each Sunday, and they do it damn near every week.
Yeah.
But I just don't know. Is it going to be Trey or Jimmy? Have they announced it?
Oh, it's going to be Trey.
He's terrible. He's terrible.
I mean, so they just restructured Jimmy's contract, which is interesting. But because, I mean, they're not going to trade him. They're going to hold on to him. It's very interesting to me the way it's structured, very incentive-laden. It seems like they're not sure that they won't need him.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's no way they'll pull the plug on Trey week 1.
I think ultimately what ends up happening is the second that first QB goes down, someone's making a play for Jimmy G. Because like if you're a contender and you lose your quarterback early and you're just kind of like never really imagined putting Colt McCoy in, like, of course, I single out the Cardinals by saying that, but Colt McCoy was just the first guy that popped to mind that was like, yeah, I'm definitely not rolling it with him for the rest of the season. So that is an interesting point as well. But a lot he brought up throughout the preseason, the team has been 100% or 100 times more disciplined than at any point with Nagy. No dumb penalties, no illegal shifts or illegal formations, no personal fouls, pretty clean. I honestly saw a stat on Saturday. They had like less than 10 penalties all preseason, which is nuts.
Yeah,
3 full games.
These guys are focused, man. This was like if you read my article last winter about making the case for Eberflus as head coach, this was a big part of it. He's going to bring discipline. He's going to bring focus and have his guys on their P's and Q's all the time, which is, I mean, it's exactly what I hope we'd see with Eberflus, and we've seen it, and I'm very excited about that.
No, yeah, it's definitely a plus when you don't have guys punching players from the other team in the face when they don't get their way. Which also, too,
unless they hit our quarterback.
Well, yes, and we did see some of that fight out of the offensive line after Fields. Lo and behold, for like the 55th game in a row, even though he's only played 4 preseason games, gets his head absolutely knocked off, and it's just like, look at. I know he's not Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or whoever you want to say, Dak Prescott, who's like a known commodity and a known star in this league. He's a quarterback. He still needs to be protected as so. And some of these hits he takes when he tries to slide specifically are just ridiculous. It's like, bruh.
Dude, Sam Musfer showed me a little nasty.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been wondering where that for the last few years if he has any nasty in him, and he's showing it a little. Like on that play where Fields got hit, you see Whitehair coming up and kind of giving the guy a little push, and you see Musfer flying in, just 90 miles an hour at the like. I like it, man. I like it.
And it's like as long as you can do that without getting penalized, which I don't believe they did, like that's what you want from your offensive line, especially. I mean, dude, Justin Fields is just a kid, man. He's like 23 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't want him taking those type of shots. But yeah, all I keep thinking of is perhaps one of the biggest shots I've ever seen a quarterback take. Cracked 8 of his ribs, and what'd he do? Throw like 4 more touchdowns in that game. So
Yeah.
Justin Fields' toughness is never in question, but just lay off our quarterback. And then, too, it's like I want to send him to an MLB team to just learn how to properly slide so he doesn't get his head knocked off every time. Scott made it back to the chat
for years.
Yeah, and he never. Yeah, you would think as a shortstop and a fast guy, you're probably stealing some bags, and you're probably getting pinch run for the sluggers on your team if you're not in the game. But apparently not.
Justin hit a bomb every time he went to the plate. Come on.
Yeah, he was just slowly running around the bases. I mean, I could believe it. Justin Fields gives off that vibe that he's probably just always been the best guy at every sport that he's ever tried. Yeah. So probably could hoop, probably could play a little hockey, a little footy. Maybe he definitely could do some track. We know that he's fast, but I don't know how he would do in sprints and long distance. But
how his hurdles look.
Yeah, how his hurdles look. We know his slides aren't there, so that definitely would not help. But Scott from Iowa back in the comments, back with the playoff talk. 10-7 making the playoffs. #book it. And then also, once Vic, there hasn't been a real dog on the coaching staff, and now it's all full of dogs. So, valid point. A lot. We have this, honestly, shout out to the chat. This might be the busiest it's ever been. People are just very excited for Bears football to be back, as we are as well.
Oh,
but
I'm excited.
A lot says
this next week is one of my favorite weeks of
the
year.
10 days. We're like 10 days away from the opening night. And honestly, what a banger of a game. Rams, Bills, that could be a Super Bowl preview. Like those teams, and too, Von Miller up against his old team. Granted, it was only a year, but a team that you win a Super Bowl with. So he has a special type of brotherhood again with those guys. But yeah, that's about as good as it gets to start the season. But a lot brings up the point that Mooney wants to get paid too. It's coming up soon. He's going to ball out. Valid point. 5th round draft picks probably not getting the highest paid contract, and if he can continue to get better.
Well, like, did you read that Tariq Cohen piece in the Players Tribune that came out? Like,
I heard they kind of jagged him out of some money, right, or just the whole situation.
Well, so basically, like, he was talking about like being a 4th round pick, and it's like, okay, most of my bonus went towards buying my mom a house, paying off debts, and getting my living situation figured out. And then I had the like $400,000 a year that I'm living on, but I got family issues that I'm paying for with attorneys and hospital bills, and and it's not a lot. Like the 5th round money, like it's a lot, but you buy a few big things and it's not.
And even taxes, bro. You're in a totally different tax bracket than just guys like us. So it's a lot. And then, I mean, it's tough because, Tariq has been through so much. He lost his brother. His injuries. And he was always, honestly, like one of my favorite players because as a guy that size at 5'6", 180 pounds, right, you can't afford to take plays off. So as a Bears fan who wants to see that effort and just like the hunger that we have when we get up on Sunday morning and watch our team, even though we have nothing to do with the result. But like Tariq Cohen may not ever play in the NFL again, but he will always be one of my favorite Bears just for the way that he played the game. And then too is like, if you got him in some space, bro, good luck. Like that guy was electric.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so I mean, he's looking to get that payday. He's looking to change his life and his family's life for the rest of
generational wealth. That's what they always talk about, is that generational wealth. Because, I mean, look at it like this. In any sport, right, baseball, basketball, football, hockey, and hockey's pay is terrible in comparison to the rest of the sports. That first contract is, like you said, you probably just finished college. You probably, you want to buy a nice car, a nice house. Like your whole life changes, right? So and you've earned it too, right? So it's not like, you just got all this money, don't spend it. But one of the things that we've seen time in and time again, and this isn't like, I'm not even saying in Tariq's case, but like you see these guys struggle with money because of the circle that they carry and the people around them. And it's fucked up to see. And it honestly breaks my heart because it's like, were you in the gym for 4, 5, 6 hours a day training to run a 4.40, and then were you out there taking those hits? Like, No. So it is what it is, but you see it way too often with football, basketball, baseball players where it's like everybody has a piece of the pie and eventually the pie goes dry and it's gone. And eventually these careers are over. So it's like there's no getting that money back and there's no getting that time back. So it's absolutely devastating to see. But for Mooney, I want that contract to be in a Bears uniform. I don't want him to overperform for a 5th-round pick and then not get what he's due from us. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
that would be a travesty.
I honestly, I don't see any way the Bears let him get out the door. I mean, he's everything that they're trying to build with this culture. He's the definition of it, and I'm very confident that he's going to be here.
He went to Tulane. Like Tulane was good like before we were alive, but not anymore. So like to make it off Tulane and to be where he is at in the NFL right now, like hats off to him. I would assume he'll probably get a contract in the $10 to $15 million a year range, right? When his time comes, depending on 15 plus, right? Plus.
Receivers are making 20 now. I mean,
that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, never mind. Christian Kirk's getting like $22 million a year, so incredible money to catch footballs. But yeah, a lot brings up the point that Eberflus comes from the Love You Smith tree. You know they'll be prepared no matter what. And then I Am Skokes talks about how proud he is of Braxton Jones. Scouted him months before the draft and believe he is our legit left tackle. And for those of you that don't know, Southern Utah, another small school. Hats off to the scouting department for even finding this guy. And then the way he's performed in the preseason has been very encouraging, especially given that he's not like a guy from actual Utah or, Alabama or whatever. It's like we can find players wherever, and we may not have the best roster right now, but our scouts and that whole like department that recruits players and finds the players for the team is starting to figure out the identity of the players that they want on the team.
Yeah. On the point of Braxton Jones, the kid's been impressive. And I mean, he's got some impressive traits with his athleticism, his arm length. He's got a lot to like. I'm still nervous about Joey Bosa bull rushing him because his anchor leaves a lot to be desired right now. So I hope that's something that we see get better and better throughout the year. But he has all the traits that you really want to see with that arm length, athleticism, and the attitude out there on the field seems to match it. I just hope he's not getting pushed into the quarterback's lap too often, like we've seen in the preseason. Some
attitude goes a long way on the offensive line. That's almost a position that, at the very least, you just have to be a tough son of a bitch and someone that is willing to put your 4 fingers in the dirt 85 times a game and at full speed just run into another human being and try to push them back. So those guys are a little loco, but I like the way he's played so far in the preseason, and I hope that he can build on that and have a good regular season. But Alop has returned, and he said Fields is galvanizing this team. They're all rallying around him. That's leadership, and you love to see it. And I think that kind of goes back to what we talked about a little bit ago, where if you look at the trajectory of Justin Fields' career, right, he's always been in the spotlight. He was on that Netflix show. It was always 1-2.
He was the number one quarterback in the country.
Exactly.
Above Trevor Lawrence at one point, and then Lawrence edged him last minute.
See, and you know what, though? Maybe it's the situation in Jacksonville. Maybe it's the fact that, like, I feel Trevor Lawrence doesn't have that same mental makeup and DNA, even though he has championships and he's won big games and done everything that you could have done in college. In the NFL, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to elaborate on it. Like, it's super meatballish, but I honestly just think he's kind of a little bitch. It's terrible to say, but I just don't see him having that same level of grit and toughness as Fields. He's a talented quarterback, don't get me wrong, but is he going to be able to put up with the Jags being absolutely terrible for the next few years and then he's on his second contract by then, and it's kind of like the Jameis Mariota situation, where it's like Jameis could resurge his career and still have a great finish to his career, but that first half was just like you're kind of surrounded by shit, and when you're surrounded by a lot of shit, by default, at the quarterback position, you turn into shit. Unless you're Tom Brady. Tom Brady has found ways with lesser receivers, but they just traded away.
Roster was pretty loaded for Brady.
Oh well, yeah, no, now it is. But I'm saying, like, if you look back at some of his old Pats teams,
Tampa pre-Mike Evans, and I think actually no, was Evans there with Jameis the whole time?
He was. Evans got drafted the same year as Manziel, so he honestly would have been there before him. I think.
A year before. So
yeah,
he was there the whole time, but the rest of it was more building. Like, I know going into Jameis's third year is when they really stacked up that roster.
Yeah.
But those first 2 years was pretty empty outside of Evans.
Like right now, it's crazy. And it's again, me being a homer at least, but Zach Wilson, injured, surrounded by shit, right? Trevor Lawrence does not have that dog in him, surrounded by shit. Trey Lance, not sold on him, surrounded by probably the best team. So maybe he'll be a little bit better because he's surrounded by better players and he has more support.
It's not that not to knock the Bears coaching staff, but Shanahan's the best in the game on offense.
Yes.
That's the biggest factor to me. You combine that with the talent they have.
Yeah.
I trust that Shanahan can make it real easy for him.
Exactly. Yeah. He's in the best position to succeed of all those quarterbacks. Fields surrounded by mid, because I will refuse to call our players shit, but I still think, regardless of all that, like, that dog in him, that it factor that you talked about, not wanting to repeat what happened last season, probably not going to win the Super Bowl, but I'd like to at least put us having a chance to go 500. Scott comes back in and he said the Fox and the national media are trying to say Mooney couldn't make other teams in the league, and let them think that, because I want that type of bulletin board material coming at coming at Darnell Mooney, coming into this season, so that he knows, hey, I got to prove these people wrong. And two, the more I perform, the more M's are going to be on that contract. Because you talked about 15 mil. Maybe Darnell wants to make a little 20. Maybe he wants to make the money that we didn't want to give to Allen Robinson. And maybe, just maybe, they'll give it to him.
Bunny Mooney's going to become a reality, man.
Yeah, no, I believe that. I 100% believe that. And then let's see. His wife said there was more to life than football, and Trevor Lawrence doesn't need football to feel worthy. Yeah, it's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, I don't know.
I'm sure he was real happy that his wife said that.
Yeah, no. And I'm pretty sure he got all his money, and I'm pretty sure like he got a portion of his contract in Bitcoin. So like, not a huge crypto guy, but if Bitcoin ever just blows up, like, he's out, he's gone. He's like the Spencer Dinwiddie of the NFL. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, I think it was only like a 15% or something, but still a chunk of change.
Yeah, so if Bitcoin ever does the moon thing, like on tap, like, he's just gonna quit playing football and just be one of those guys that sits in an office with like 9 laptops in front of him, just trading. So that's what's up for Trevor Lawrence here in the future. But so no, a lot. He's not leaving, so we're not even going to say that comment. But Alaf was basically saying other teams that Darnell Mooney would fit on, and honestly, he's ours. Let's hold on to him as long as we can, and let's build around him. Hopefully, we can get N'Keal Harry back at a point in the season where the season's not too far gone, and we can see kind of what we really have in N'Keal Harry. I know
the depth's great to have, but from what we've seen from Sharp and Pettis, I have a lot more faith in those two.
Dude, they looked good as well in the preseason, I will say. And then, too, you throw in the fact that Pettis can run back punts and kicks. Has to be like a lead pipe lock. Yeah, he's on this team. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not going to get cut. I think we got a little sidetracked, which is totally fine, because it's like It's the random week before the season, but
yeah, it's like Christmas Eve, and you're sitting there with your siblings, just like speculating what the gifts could be.
Football is back, and our quarterback just threw 3 touchdowns in the last game of football that we all watched. So yes, we are very excited. But the final 3 people that got cut: wide receiver Kevin Shaw didn't really have a great performance. This most recent game, he wasn't as bad in the previous games, but this week had a couple drops, and that'll do it for you in the preseason. I mean, we saw it with Daz Newsome. They cut him before the game for drops and stuff like that. So Corey Dublin at center was also cut, and then safety John Alexander. So right now, not a huge list, but list is only going to continue to grow as far as this roster goes, because you got to get down to 53. Once we get to 53, let's hope it's the right group, because I want to see this team do great things this year. Yeah,
100%. I mean, I'm with you. One guy who I want to mention too is just Tevin Jenkins. He looked even better at right guard this week than he did last week. I mean, and you talk about bringing a little nasty. I mean, I saw a little nasty from him all throughout the first half.
It's got that dog in him. But also, too, you saw earlier today, though, they're still talking about trading him. So it's like,
I don't think that's real, personally.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Tevin's agent still want him to be traded. Maybe he even still would like to be traded because he wants to play tackle and make tackle money. But I don't think the Bears are giving him up for just anything, and I don't think teams are going to offer enough to make it worth their while.
True. So I Am Scopes came into the chat and said, I'm expecting our cuts in early morning. They already have their minds made up. That is true. As you can see on this PFF thing, I know we're the only ones looking at it, but for our listeners, if you just go into PFF's website and just kind of go in their search bar and look up roster cuts tracker, you can always look at where all the live cuts are. And then in addition, like the bigger name guys, obviously we at On Tap will probably have articles right away for those guys when they get cut. But if you want to see the full list, I don't like giving free plugs, especially to PFF because they're such ball farters, but they do have the full list and it is right there on their website. But Scott has brought up, what is DK worth in a trade, 4th or 5th? I mean, I don't even know if that would be enough. I don't think that Seattle wants to trade DK Metcalf. I don't think they want to trade DK Metcalf in the first place.
You need to give a first for him. Like that's probably the baseline, even if they did want to trade him.
Yeah, and I don't think DK Metcalf really wants to be there anymore because Russell Wilson is gone. But Geno Smith was named the quarterback. He didn't look terrible when he came into the team last year, like when he was playing towards the end of the season. I remember there was 1 week specifically where I was like, I had like Seahawks plus 8.5, and he brought home the bacon. So Geno Smith, good teams win, great teams cover. The Seahawks are not going to win a lot of football games this year. And honestly, one could argue they may be the single worst team in the NFL this year.
Well, and just about a month ago, 2 months ago, they came to a 3-year, $72 million extension. They'd have to eat a ton of dead money to trade him at this point.
Yeah, so start playing the young Jeezy, get Drew Lock going on the sidelines. DK is there to stay, unfortunately for us. But Alop says 23 more players will go before the deadline tomorrow. And then he also
There'll be a lot of hard decisions in there with the end of roster special teams guys.
Yes, he also said, and this is a plug that I will always give, is he will have a full list of cuts tomorrow after the deadline. So disregard everything I said about PFF. Just go over to OnTap Sportsnet, name search a lot, or just name search our Bears articles, and they'll all be right there. So perfect for us, perfect for a lot. Not so perfect for the guys on that list, but it's news at the end of the day, and the people got to know who's going to be on this team. And like you said, it's going to be some tough decisions because a lot of those positions like receiver and cornerback where they were super tight are very deep. So it's like you said.
Well, the guys like Tyre Carter and Zachary Thomas.
Yeah.
You spend a 6th-round draft pick on these guys. You can probably stash them on practice squad, but you like what they bring to the table too, and you obviously like to have them on the roster. Those are tough decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's a rookie too, so it's like you don't want people that you just brought into the team this year to not be able to make the roster that same year. It's
going to impact their rookie contracts. Like if they get cut and put on the practice squad, they're not on their rookie contract anymore.
No, yeah, you only make
they're a restricted free agent in 2 years.
You make $7,500 a week, I believe it is, which is like, if I made $7,500 a week, I'd be chilling. But I also
I meant more from a team control standpoint.
Oh yeah,
like you don't have 4 years of control of that player anymore.
All right, so if you made, I don't know how much money you make. Maybe you make $7,500 a week. But if you made $7,500 a week, what is like the first thing you're buying on Monday? Like, all your bills are paid. You're like, all right, it's me time. I make $7,500 a week. I'm on the practice squad. What are you buying?
Man, so my wife asked me this question a few months ago. I could not give her an answer. I don't buy a lot. Like I don't have a lot of stuff. I'm just like.
Yeah, it's not like I mean.
I guess a TV,
how much does that add up to a year?
Maybe?
Yeah,
maybe I'd probably get NFL season ticket. That would probably be the first thing I'm
buying. I gotta extrapolate that and see how much that is over 52 weeks. So 7,500 times 52 puts you in. So it might even be. I don't know if they get
in season.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's only in season. So I was like, I don't know if they get in 390,000 a year. But anyways. If I made $7,500 a week and I was like trying to splurge on something early in the week, bro, I'm on a steak dinner on Monday night. Like get the week started off right. Like couple drinks, nice steak dinner, watch Monday Night Football with the boys. Like maybe buy a couple rounds. But yeah, I mean for us that'd be dope. But for them it's like $7,500 ain't a lot for what you're doing because you're still getting your teeth kicked in every single day at practice. You're almost like a human meat shield at that point. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're a human tackling dummy. So it is what it is. But the cool thing about the practice squad is, as we've seen throughout the years, if you're a guy that other teams are seeking on their roster, you will get picked up and you will get put into play right away. So if there is one thing on the developmental side of the NFL, it's the additions and changes they've made to the practice squad and how it operates. I think that is one of the better things they have going for them, but you'd still like to be able to see, even if it was just like 8 teams and say it was each, this is like super tinfoil hat theory, but each division had a developmental team, right? Yeah. And you bid on those players from that team when it's time for them to come to the NFL within your division. Something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it can't be that hard to figure out after 100+ years of playing professional football to find a way to develop a guy, maybe like Ja'Tyre Carter, who isn't all the way there yet, but you don't want to just throw him out because you have to, because of roster cut day. So it is kind of a broken system, but it's what we got and what we're working with. And before you know it, we'll be down to 53 and we'll be ready to roll for the season. Do you have any guys that may be on the fringe that you absolutely would hate to see not make this roster?
I'm a big fan of the fire that Elijah Hicks shows out there. So I'd really like to see him make it. Let me think. There was a cornerback I'm trying to think of.
Was it Lamar? Was it our Lamar Jackson?
I like Lamar Jackson, but there was another corner. Greg Stroman. I think Greg Stroman's put out some nice moments here. I'd be interested to see what he could do longer term. I think he's got a tough battle for that roster spot.
Yeah, no, and he actually made the breakup in the end zone to seal the victory too. So clutch player. For me, I think I've talked about it a lot, but I'll go 2 guys as well. The second guy got added this week based solely on his performance in Cleveland, but Devontae Harris. I think that's a veteran presence, even though it's not like Richard Sherman level in his peak or like Darrelle Revis in his peak, but that's a guy who has played in the NFL for the last 5 years. You can find a spot for him on special teams, and he's shown to be a willing tackler, which at the cornerback position, I cannot stress the importance of having willing tacklers out there. We haven't really seen that since Kyle Fuller left because for whatever reason, it's not required to tackle as a cornerback in college. But I want to see him make the roster. I'm actually going to say 3, but I think the third one is an absolute lock. DeMarcus Gates, I want to see him make the roster. And then still build the statue, put it out on the lakefront. Jack Sanborn. And I don't want to just see him make the roster. I want to see him play this year. I don't want to just see him make the roster and not get anything outside of special teams. I want to see him in situations, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sanborn is an absolute lock for this roster at this point, and I think he's a guy who's going to get some serious run at some point in the season.
Yeah. So, I mean, that'll do it. It was a beautiful preseason. No losses. You had a little bit of everything. You had a comeback win. You had a lead that was way too big and you knew was going to slim down and you held on to it. And then you also had a game right there in between where you just absolutely blew the doors off of the team. So you got a little bit of everything in the preseason. We saw in the first 2 games, the second and third string guys really shined. And then we saw this last week, the first string guys really shined. So quite literally everything we could have asked for in a preseason. No major injuries. Everyone's rolling into the season pretty healthy for the most part. And, I mean, if there's a time to buy in on the Bears, if you don't have an NFL team, that time is right now because the stock is low. And it's only going to continue to get better throughout this Matt Eberflus era and only continue to get better throughout this Justin Fields era. So we'll be here to cover it for you. We'll be back. We decided on Wednesdays, right? We'll be coming on Wednesdays for pre-games. So we'll be back next Wednesday to discuss our week 1 opponent, the San Francisco 49ers, and finally get this NFL season started off, hopefully the right way with a W, but an important game nonetheless, and a game that I really just wish was tomorrow morning because now that I think about it, it's like the NFL season is back. We had college week 0 last week. I got my play-by-play this week. I got Notre Dame, NIU. You got Texas Tech. There is a full slate to just be a degenerate on. Like everything that I love about this life, especially when it comes to football, is all coming back at once. And it's like you said, it's like Christmas Day. And whether we're 0-17 or 17-0, we'll be here week in and week out to take care of the pre-games and post-games for you. But if you were here with us to talk a little football on this Monday night, we really do appreciate you. The comment section was very encouraging today. I would say our most popular comment section day. But Q, final thoughts before we let this one go?
This guy's got that dog in him, man.
He got that dog. His heart started beating like a dog. But we'll be back. Hopefully a full house, too. Joey and Ron have been very busy with Cubs. They lost a stinker tonight to the Blue Jays, but they'll be back, I'm assuming, sooner rather than later because the Cubs are definitely not going to the playoffs. So hopefully we'll get them back for week 1. But if not, you know where to find us and you know who will be here, me and Quintin. And we'll keep you posted. But other than that, you can find all of our work at ontapsportsnet.com. Stay tuned for future shows and go Bears.
Go Bears.